Hello, everyone. Welcome to another series of podcasts dealing with the concept of glory. And here today, we are going to talk about especially in this age of the emergence of AI. We want to see a parallel, a very important parallel to, us getting ready for whatever AI will bring. And I'm talking on spiritual dimension, the Christian dimension. Especially, we are going to look today at the Eucharistic concept, Eucharistic response into the age of AI. And it all bears a synergy to what we are discussing, the Ori significance, because as maybe many of you may be aware, the Ori as the head and the imaging of artificial intelligence as a replica of the head. The neurons in the brain is what made up what gives AI the capacity to be able to work in large language models. So we consider that the Eucharistic response is very, very integral into the age which we are living. And as such, I'm very, very honored and privileged to have my friends here today. Father Kenneth Adesina. Father Kenneth Adesina is a professor at the major seminary in Ibadan, Nigeria. So I am honored to have him and welcome, Father Kenneth.
Thank you.
All right. Now, we have been having series of seminars and exhibitions in London regarding the preparing, how people should be prepared in the age of AI, artificial intelligence, large language models, ChatGPT, and so forth. And we consider that we have to look at this also in a spiritual dimension. Zooming back in, we see that artificial intelligence as a concept of the head of the Ori, which we are talking about, and Christ as also the head ipso facto is. It should be a point of focus for us in our age. Do you see any relevance at all between this?
Yeah, I would say there is still a lot to be done to establish the relevance. In the first place, if we talk of the AI and the Eucharist, yes, people try to limit everything to artificial intelligence. But the fact is, in the Eucharist, we have the source of intelligence itself. And we cannot now, it's just like like trying to put the water in the ocean into a bucket. The artificial intelligence will only do at least the surface of real knowledge. Even human beings, the ones who created artificial intelligence, not actually claim to have the intelligence that is in the Eucharist. So the Eucharist is greater than artificial intelligence. But just as we know, the Eucharist is a mystery, which does not mean we cannot know anything about it, but we cannot really say we have the full knowledge of the Eucharist. And I think it is still a realm that is beyond artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can talk about and relate to different aspects, but it is something that is far, far beyond artificial intelligence because the Eucharist is not just a thing. The Eucharist is a person, and it is not a person that is restricted to humanity. It's divinity himself, and so it is far beyond that. But if we're looking at other aspects of artificial intelligence that we want to understand better in the light of the Eucharist, that is better. And that is even clearer. So, what aspect of artificial intelligence, what aspect of the human person, what aspect of the human experience do we want to understand better in the light of the Eucharist?
Thank you very much. And I'm very glad to have you here because you know where we are coming from with our exhibition because you are somebody very fast in the Yoruba linguistic cultural dimension of the concept of Ori. And now, when we look at the Ori in terms of the Christian dimension, we say that Ori, Christ is the head of the church. Throw more light onto us regarding how Christ is the head of the church and what this has to do with the Eucharistic dimension that we're talking about today.
Now, I want us to understand it better, not in terms of Christ, the head of the church, but to go deeper into what the Eucharist is vis-a-vis the Yoruba understanding of Ori. The definition, if we want to describe the Eucharist, there are different ways of defining it. But if we go into the description of the Eucharist, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, that the Eucharist is a sacrament which is the body and blood, soul, and divinity of Christ under the appearance of bread and wine. And we look at that the Yoruba understanding of the human person as a coming together of four elements, which are ara, emi, okan, and ori. And we can see the ara as the body. We see the emi as the spirit. We see the okan as physiological, the place where blood flows. Even though in Yoruba understanding it is more affection and blood, which is also something, an element that is in the Eucharist. Then we see the divinity in the Eucharist, and we see the Ori in Yoruba. We'll say that when we talk about the person, it is the combination of these four elements that we see also in the Eucharist: the body, the blood, soul, and divinity. Just as the Yoruba culture, we talk of the human person as Ara, Okan, and Ori. And so when we look at the Eucharist, we're not talking of an aspect of existence. We are talking of a being that is not restricted to the physical reality like ordinary Allah, that talks about the two dimensions of existence that we know, that it is natural and supernatural. It is tangible. We can see it, we can touch it, we can experience it, but it is still beyond what we experience. And so when we now talk of the experience of the Eucharist for a Yoruba person, it is now we will see, like Yoruba will say, Awo, Ori Abo. That's, yeah, the divinity has come to our domain to relate with us because he has that capacity to help us to interact with us so that he can lift us to be like him. And that is where we begin to understand a direct contact with the Eucharist in the Yoruba culture. And when we receive the Eucharist, God in his divinity is intervening in our own existence. And because we have that capacity in us, just like we said, the Ori is not a physical entity. It is better even translated with the word the soul in English. The soul is better to translate Ori. It is not the spirit. And so that aspect, that element of God that is put into the human person, that creation, according to Yoruba, because we have the Ori in the Yoruba cosmology, that the Ori is part of the person. And it is the soul that is given by Olodumare himself. And if we now want to put the two together, it is Jesus Christ that is relating with us in his divinity. And so that's elements that he has given to us. If we may liken it to the creation, that we were created in the image and likeness of God. And by the way, let me just, by the way, put in these creatures. The animals in Yoruba culture, we don't talk of the culture, the animals as having body, they have a body, and that is why they die when their mate leaves the body. But the body that makes human being to exist forever in eternity, we're not talking of where the eternity will be now, is that distinguishes man from other animals, because it is the work of God that is in us. That element that is put in the human nature by Olodumare, the Creator himself. Jesus Christ is in the Eucharist is related with us in this divinity. It means that that he has put into us should be able to relate with him in the Eucharist. So it will give a better understanding to you, the person. When you explain the Eucharist as the body, the blood, the soul, and divinity, that was the totality of Christ is coming down to us. And we must respond in the totality of our own being.
Wow, I like that. I like that parallel. It's the first time I'm hearing it as such. So body, blood, soul, and divinity has a direct correlation with the Yoruba concept of ara, emi, okan, and ori. Wow, that's good. So another aspect that like intrigues me is when we say that Christ is the way. And now, yeah, my experience shows in a way is that Christ, who is the way, is our head. He leads us, isn't it? That the Eucharist, if we receive the Eucharist into ourselves, we are actually journeying in this realm of existence towards eternity. And that, in a way, sounds very beautiful to me because now we have the King, the head, whom we receive, that is leading us on this journey. Are we right to look at it in that light?
In the Bible, in John chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus says that I have come so that they may have life and have it in abundance. So he has come to show us the light. The story of creation, when God created the world, human beings inclusive, everything he created was good. So that means man was in a state of original grace. Everything was in perfection. But original sin came. We sinned and we lost that state of original grace. And then God already made a prophesy that, okay, the offspring of Eve is going to strike the head of the serpent. It's from there you see the story of our salvation came in. And so when Christ came, this God coming in to restore us, which literally means that recapitulation, the head that has been cut off is placed back there again. That when we sinned, we lost contact and we lost perfect contact with God. We missed state of original grace. So Christ coming in was to restore us to the state of grace that we lost. In order to perpetuate his presence, he remains with us in the Eucharist to guide us. And that is why, if you read the whole of the 6th chapter of the Gospel according to John, they talk about the Eucharist, that whoever receives me lives in me and I live in him. So talking about becoming one with him, because right from creation, we have the image of God in us. And so if the Eucharist is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ, it means that we ourselves, the soul, our body, our blood, our soul, and divinity, because we have that element of divinity in us, must mingle with the totality of Christ so that our nature is transformed. We receive an upliftment in grace to the original position in which we were created that we have lost because of sin. And that is why the church will talk of going for confession and receiving the Eucharist in a state of grace. So Christ is always our leader because he has the perfection of all those states that we have in little elements now. The journey, the human journey is to reach that perfection in him. The first John chapter 3, the first 3 chapter talks about on that day we shall see you as you are, because you are going to, when you appear in glory. So when he appears, we are going to see him as he are, because we will be like him. So it is that perfection that is the human, that is the journey that we are walking with. And who is the best to guide us, if not the one that has the perfection of everything that we are looking for?
I remember in our previous podcast, we talked about this transcendence, like because it may be difficult for a modern man to really come to grasp. A modern person who is we are soaked in materialism. So we may want to wonder, is the Eucharist just beneficial for the spiritual dimension? What is the relevance of our materialistic life dimension, the physical dimension, and the metaphysical dimension, and how it helps us with our day-to-day living? Like how it helps me with how does the Eucharist, the Eucharist has anything to do with getting on in life, avoiding temptations, avoiding dangers, getting on with my family and things like that, things that makes life worth living in this contemporary age.
Yeah. Now, when we look at the Hebrew situation, there are a lot of things we need to put in place. When we talk of the modern man, we talk of the age in which people want to be respected, that the dignity of the human person should be respected. The postmodern came with the idea that the man is the measurement of everything, and they push away the community. There is now relativism, that nobody wants to talk about the common, even truth is becoming relativized a bit. And so when we have all these things, you discover that there's something that is missing. And that is the understanding of the origin of man. Whether you consider it at the in the modern era, in the postmodern era, and if you want to now consider that there's a break from postmodernism now, we consider the contemporary man. There's something that is missing. What is the identity of this man? The identity is always that man is somebody created in the image and likeness of God. For those who want to push the idea of God away, I don't know whether the Romans will say never that God non habit. How do you expect that nobody can give what it does not have? If you are saying the beauty of this world, the elements that we see, the human beauty we see is a product of chaos. It is not tenable. And so if we take God away, man has lost his identity. And so in this our present age, we will still need the presence of God, who becomes, no matter however you want to see it, the epitome of spirituality, of morality, of knowledge, and everything should be subjected to him, because outside them, nothing has meaning. And in the Eucharist, we have the fullness of divine presence. And there we begin to understand all things. And in the church, we talk of the Eucharist as the source and summit of our faith. That our faith, our identity, flows from the Eucharist. And it should lead us back to Jesus Christ himself. And so, along the line, how do we live our lives? How do we comport ourselves? We must comport ourselves in the way that Christ has taught us, leading that we need also his empowerment. But that consciousness at every step we take is very essential. Otherwise, we will just be like the hunting dog that is fated to water trees. We will not listen to the uncle's wisdom of report. So the Eucharist becomes a reference in us, calling our attention to who we are and what we are supposed to be, and where we should place our focus, not in material things, but in that union with Christ, so that we think is going to make us who he is and lead us to the source where everything started, which is in God.
Thank you very much for that, for how you've elucidated. Now, what message? Maybe we're being very stoic, we are being very narrow with our insistence on the Eucharist. How would you speak to like modern person? For instance, let's start from an atheistic person now, or somebody who believes in God who doesn't believe in the Christian message. Now we go even to the Christian message who do not believe in the essentially Eucharistic message that we're talking about today. Now, how does it trickle down? Does it have any significance to the Eucharist as the head? Does it have any significance any message to such people?
Yeah. First and foremost, I will recommend whoever is still alive and has the opportunity of hearing this message, the person belongs to this era. So I'm going to recommend the person to go and read the life of Saint Carlo Acutis, a young boy devoted to the Eucharist, who even at that tender age was able to bring together different Eucharistic miracles all over the world. So I will recommend that. But I'm going to underline something that is fundamental to the Eucharist. And I will start from those who don't believe, you don't believe in science, and they think that is a reason to discredit or not to believe the Eucharist. I will want them to also look at it. If faith does not help them, maybe science will help them. The plain image of the crucifixion of Christ that many of us know, for me, it was actually strange initially, was that Jesus Christ was crucified here. But at a point in time, at the point when I looked at the image of the shroud of Turin, which was the cloth they used to wrap the body of Jesus Christ, you will see the mark of the nail here and
Towards the
on the wrist. So the question comes, how come that the popular image you normally see is that Christ was crucified on the palm?
yeah,
And since that's, they don't question that before, started realizing that there's no way the nail will stay here. So he took a proof coming from the shroud of Turin to show that yes, science may overlook this, scientific knowledge may be inadequate. And not just that. In one of the Eucharistic miracles, I think that of Lanciana, when the investigation of the Eucharist was done, even by scientists that are not Christians, atheists, they discovered to check the DNA of the wine that turned to blood, check the blood group, check the DNA, in order to also satisfy their curiosity. Test was also made of the strand of blood or the strand of urine, and they discovered the same DNA with centuries in between. And the ages of all these items cannot be confused because they are documented. And even different scientific methods can be used to check the date. The date of this. So when you say the centuries apart, and you see the same God who was at the beginning is still the one now, and is the same that it will be. So I will just say that science is not unreasonable. Science will be bold enough to say, yeah, maybe we're not able to fully explain them. I'm not saying science should submit that it is not it is impossible. No, but okay, the limit of science is for now we don't have a situation to this, and we must also admit that even in history there have been times when science will not be sufficient, maybe overlooking some things. Before the time of Galileo, even Isaac Newton, nobody knew anything about the force of gravity.
yeah.
And all those things to show that there is a limit to it.
There is a general concept in science that is unfamiliar at the time because you always have superior evidences that makes the previous evidence irrelevant. So I like the scientific dimension you brought to the play of the Eucharist. That I think we should pay attention more wherever affiliation we belong to, atheism, not non-Christians, even Christians who don't actually pay attention to the Eucharist as such, to look into such narrative. There are quite a number of them. And it's a beautiful response to my question. And finally, I know our time is running up. I would like us to look into this Yoruba concept. I think in the journey of the Yoruba philosophical search for truth, they came to the conclusion that Orila Bako, which literally means it is the head that should be worshipped, and we should lay in God. Now, can you throw more light on that in relevance to the Eucharist? It is the head that has to be worshipped and leave the gods.
I will still not translate the proverb that way. Your Risha will not be it won't be it won't be good. We will not be doing justice to Yoruba system who translate the Orisha as gods, because in the Yoruba belief system, there's only one God, Olodumare. All the Orishas are mysteries, and some of them are actually human beings that became deified. They are not dragging position with God. They are just messengers of God. And so, what we will understand by Orila Baba Kafi Orisha Sile. Now, if we look at Ori as the soul, the divinity that we share with God that He has placed in us, we will just say the proverb is pointing our attention to the fact that we have something of God in us. And we should put more effort into building a relationship with God, the divinity that we have, that we share with God. And when we relate with Jesus in the Eucharist, we should let our own the divinity make meaning in consonance. And there's nothing with the divinity of Christ in the Eucharist that we are receiving, so that we become part of it. So it's the challenge on the sacramentality of our faith, that if I focus on Christ in the Eucharist, I become a visible expression of the person of Christ himself. So that people who relate with me will recognize that divinity of Christ that is in me. And the divinity that God has given to me, the image of Christ becomes more visible in me. That I will represent not just myself, but the essence and the identity of Christ that are shared, his dignity, his divinity with me in the Eucharist. And so there are other things that we can do, but we should focus more on establishing that identity that we share with Christ. And the essence of the word that what we say in the church, that the Eucharist is the source of summit, is the greatest prayer that we can ever pray in the church. That's the Mass where Jesus Christ comes to us in the Eucharist. And so every other thing should take a part when the big masculinity is around. The Jesus Christ in the Eucharist is the fullness of the knowledge of God we have. And every other thing should give credence to Him. There's no other devotion that should be going on when the Mass is going on, because the fullness of God's revelation is seen in the Eucharist. And so every other thing should take a bow for Him.
It's a good place to start. Father Kenneth Adesina, nice having you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.